Hello, welcome to the Nerdy Folks Podcast, a conversation about the nerdy things we love and the things that matter most. My name is Matthew Seipel-Anderson.
And I am Katie Seipel-Anderson.
We are the hosts of the Nerdy Folks Podcast. We love this community. We're so glad you are with us today as we discuss time machines.
Continuing our time travel series.
It's been a fun one. People travel in time, and they often need some kind of device or thing that moves them through time.
Except Loki.
He just needs his swagger.
Isn't there someone else who almost just consciously went back, or their conscience only went back in time?
Yes, that's Quantum Leap.
Okay.
Your mom has the DVDs of Quantum Leap, so if you ever want to catch up, you could just give her a call. I bet she'd loan them out.
I think I might need a DVD player, too. Do we still have one that works? We might.
I think we do.
It's been a while.
The kids might have ruined it by playing with it.
Not our kids.
Quantum Leap was cool. I remember when that was... I don't think it was on actual TV when I watched it. I think I watched it when it was in, like, syndication on cable TV when I was a kid. On, like, the USA channel or something like that. I remember always thinking it was a cool show because it was sort of like the episodes in Star Trek where they would be in the holodeck and they'd go back to like the Robin Hood days or the medieval days or like into some other time. And it was just cool. Like every episode was so different. He would be different characters, but it was the same character. I don't know. I liked Quantum Leap.
Might have to check it out now.
But it is a weird way to time travel.
It sounds a little creepy, as a matter of fact.
It sounds a little invasive.
Yeah. I think of like mind-controlling villains when I hear that. That seems to be like what it is. Yeah, like a mind-controlling villain saying, I'm going to take over your mind.
So you would prefer something more like the Tartus from Doctor Who?
The TARDIS is a pretty cool one. I haven't watched a lot of Doctor Who, but just the phone booth whirling through the sky, through space, kind of fun. And isn't it bigger on the inside?
It is. I did a little research because, like you said, we're not super big Doctor Who fans, even though Doctor Who just turned 60 and there's like a new special that just came out. TARDIS stands for Time and Relative Dimension in Space. So it's dimensionally transcendental, meaning it's bigger on the inside than on the outside.
Does that go together with, like, time-space, do you suppose? Because we were talking about that last week. Like, time-space are together.
Let's just say yes. It totally does. That's exactly what it means. At least according to the Doctor Who wiki page, which is where I got some of those statements that I just read.
Well, if you are a Doctor Who fan listening to us today, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the series that's coming out and maybe past episodes. I get the impression it's a little like Star Trek in that it's been around for a long time, kind of had different reboots of it, and oftentimes is a little cheesy, but also usually brings in some sort of like heart or lesson or a current event or something like that.
Some thought-provoking thing from current events. Well, let us know what your favorite Doctor Who episodes are. Maybe we'll check out a couple. That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
So there was a show, or movie, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's another classic. And they traveled through time in a phone booth. And I can't help thinking that that's a bit of a spoof of Doctor Who.
It seems like it. I mean, a phone booth is a little particular for a time machine. Couldn't they come up with something else?
Well, what an American thing, right? Like
something?
England has Doctor Who. He's this kind of witty, very smart guy traveling around in a police box, and then the U.S. puts out Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, it's a police box?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking it was a phone booth.
It's a booth that has a phone, but I believe the original purpose was if there was any kind of problem, you could go and it would ring the police.
Ah.
Kind of like 911 before 911.
I see.
Police box hotline.
Let's move on.
How about Time Bandits? This is another obscure one, but it's one of my personal favorites. I had to throw it in. In Time Bandits, there is a group of dwarves who work for the supreme being making shrubberies.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Shrubbery. Someone I know quotes that all the time, and I.
Yes, because that quote is from Monty Python Quest for the Holy Grail or Search for the Holy Grail.
Oh, you're probably the one who quotes it all the time.
Bring me a shrubbery. Yeah. And so, time bandits, these dwarves get sick of their lowly job. They steal the time map, go gallivanting through different times, stealing treasure until they get themselves in trouble and end up having to be saved by the Supreme Being in the end. So it's a classic. Go check out Time Bandits. Another classic that you've all heard of is Back to the Future and the DeLaurian.
That's probably my favorite time machine. What's your favorite time machine?
The DeLaurian just has a special place in my heart. I don't know if it's just the whole automobile thing. Although I think if I was going to choose one, I would have to choose the Tartus because it seems more comfortable.
Yeah, bigger on the inside than the outside. Kind of a house for you.
Kind of a house. I mean, the DeLorean's super cool, but it's pretty small. I'm not a big guy, but I'm kind of tall. I think I'd be a little crammed in the DeLorean.
I think I'd be perfectly comfortable.
It'd be fun for you and I to cruise around in a DeLorean. I think the strangest time machine is from Tenet, the recent film Tenet, where you get inverted in time. You go into this machine and you're inverted, and so from your perspective, you're moving forward, but from everyone else's perspective, you're moving backwards.
Oh, that's right. That was kind of a mind-boggling movie. I remember watching the movie and just being like, what is happening?
So there's a book called The Once and Future King with Merlin the Wizard. It's the Arthurian legend, and Merlin is traveling backward through time. So it's not a new idea, but it's definitely a new take on that idea, and a very well done version of it.
But be prepared to use your mind when you're watching. If this is like a time for a movie that you just want to like chill and mind-numbingly watch a movie, that is not the movie.
This might be like wake up early, get your workout in, eat a good, healthy, balanced breakfast so you have like lots of energy in your brain, and then watch it so you can just take it all in. And then get ready to take a nap afterwards. So, Katie, do you know where the phrase time machine came from?
You know, it's just always been there in my mind. Like, it was not a phrase that was ever created. It's just always been in my mind. When did time machine come about?
It was coined in 1895 when the novel The Time Machine was published, and it was written by H.G. Wells.
Well, that's fitting.
Yeah.
That's a while ago.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. I mean, it just was The Time Machine, and that name stuck, and of course people have been coming up with them ever since.
What was that time machine like?
I don't remember the book really describing or spending much time on what the time machine was specifically. This dude just had a time machine.
You can create it in your own mind.
Yeah.
It could be a DeLorean.
I believe in the literature world, the word for this kind of a thing is a MacGuffin. A MacGuffin is just an item that does something for the sake of moving the story. So it's like, I made a time machine, and now I'm going to tell a story about time travel.
I see.
So really, all these are kind of MacGuffins, right? They're just a useful device to help tell these stories.
Yeah, I suppose none of these movies are actually about the time machine. There's just a time machine in the story. You know, whenever I think of time machines, I think of the question that was posed. Does all time exist at the same time? I think we watched like a YouTube video on explaining time to different sets of people. And honestly, once they got to like the high school student, I was like, oh no, I'm not getting this at all. But as they progressed, it got more and more theoretical. And that was, I think, one of the questions that was posed was like, does all time exist at the same time?
And it's a question that has been asked by science, philosophy, and theology for a long time, actually. Is free will real? Does time exist? Are things kind of set in stone? It's a deep question. It's a deep well for our minds to go into.
It is, and sometimes you can get so far down that well that you just can't even see the light back up. So it's probably good to keep it in perspective and still go through life knowing that our life has meaning. Our decisions really do matter.
C.S. Lewis had a really interesting way of viewing time and God. He thought of God like an author of a story and being able to see the beginning, the middle, and the end simultaneously, but he's not necessarily in the story like the characters are in the story. But he can influence and be a part of the story, but he's not wholly there.
So kind of part of the story is free will.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think of a being like God outside of time. We are so time beings, and everything that I understand is time-based. So trying to think of reality outside of time is really difficult to fully grasp because we are such time beings where everything about us is based on time. I think even just of my 2-year-old, when kids are 2, I don't have a 2-year-old right now, but I'm thinking of when I had a 2-year-old. Their reality is so different than my reality, and what they believe is good is so different than what I believe is good, just from living more life and having more experiences. What they think is fair is different than what I think is fair, because I understand things in a much more complete way than a 2-year-old does. And I think God must think of us that way. A being outside of time, understanding things that I can't even comprehend. He must kind of look at us and with loving compassion say, there are things you don't understand.
It's almost like we have the capacity to understand how little capacity we have. It's almost like God has shown us this big door that we know there's so much more beyond as far as like his perspective. And we can't quite go there, but we understand that there is that perspective that's higher than our own.
And that's kind of where faith comes in and the belief in a good God. Because sometimes life just does not seem very good, and you look at things and you say, how on earth could this happen?
And in those moments, we can really get a lot of solace, I think, from understanding that there is a bigger picture than just our individual life. And I think when it comes from, a Christian point of view, I can see things from the cosmic perspective, which says this universe had a beginning, and thus I believe in God. And when I look at the cross, I can say, and this God is a personal God, and he loves me and was even willing to suffer with me and alongside me. And so things might be bad, but I can see the big picture. I can see the face of God through Jesus, and it just gives me this comfort that I might not ever be able to figure it all out right now during this life, but I'm going to just trust that God does know better than me.
And there can be comfort in that if we allow ourselves to be comforted in that. Not to say that it's not fun to explore some of this stuff too. I think the nature of God and how he created us is like that inquisitive nature. And I don't think there's anything wrong with asking questions with an open heart to what the truth might bring.
Absolutely. For me, as I've explored some of these questions, it has broadened my appreciation for the universe we live in and for who God is. And it, like you said, it is just plain fun to talk about this stuff. In fact, I asked a lot of people that at Twin Cities Convention a few weeks ago, and I've got one more interview. Actually, I've got a handful of them left, but one more for today. I posed the question to these people, where would they go if they could travel anywhere in the past?
Which travel in the past, I understand scientifically, is the least likely of time travel.
Yes.
Not saying it's impossible either way, traveling forward or backwards, and it might be impossible, but so far my understanding is that scientifically time travel in the past is least likely, unless, of course, you're traveling in the past through stories and history and memories.
Yes. So here we go. Comes the question and the response. All right, I'm hanging out at Twin Cities Convention with... Go ahead.
Heather, Sophia.
Oh, nice to meet you guys. Thanks for being willing to be on the show. So we've got some questions about time travel. So where would you time travel in the past?
I should have went this way. And then
I'd say like the 80s seems pretty cool.
The 80s, yeah, all right.
Well, since I've already lived through the 80s, I don't need to experience that again. But I would probably say, I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting to do like Genghis Khan time period.
Okay.
See the barbarian hordes, right?
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Okay, how about... So that was interesting. The 80s and Genghis Khan.
I mean, I love how these questions show people's interests.
Yeah.
Just like time periods and times when they've been interested in history. It's like, again, I would not have picked either one of those. But it shows where the interest lies at that point.
Right on.
Sometimes you have these really thoughtful answers like, I would go here because of, music or whatever. And then sometimes it's kind of like, I'm interested in this, so this is where I'd go visit.
And some people are just completely carefree. They just like, no. Like, she's like, yeah, I'd go hang out with Genghis Khan, dude who was like a warlord. And other people are very cautious, like, oh, I don't think I would even do it, or...
Wouldn't want to go back there because they don't have modern medicine.
Exactly. Well, we'd love to hear your thoughts on time travel. Where would you go? Who would you visit?
Doctor Who.
Lots of interesting things posed in this episode. So head over to nerdyfolks.com. Check out all the fun things there. You can connect with us. Until next time, love you. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.